Oh man, I know what y'all talking about. Um, Reggie Wright Jr. and Tupac Shakur, right? That's what y'all want to get into right now. Okay, that's fair. Um, I don't know. You probably heard something on some interview they did, right? I don't know what they appear on too much. I know you didn't hear Tupac say anything, but you're talking about Reggie Wright Jr. So let's get into it. So what is it that you thought Reggie Wright Jr. said? Hmm, this is amazing. Okay. All right, listen. Here's the here's what we say is the news, right? The news is this. From my understanding, okay? My We have never seen anything to indicate or heard anything to indicate that Tupac and Reggie Wright were best friends or buddies. I've never seen them in any photo or anything, right? Now, from what I was told, and I don't know if he agreed or disagreed or what happened, but from what I was told, Reggie Wright and Tupac Shakur didn't like each other. But it was mostly Reggie Wright trying to be friends with Tupac Shakur. Him and uh, the fact that he had the security team, which was basically Suge, telling Reggie what to do. Anyone who believes Reggie acted anything on his own at that time or any time at Death Row, well, I don't know what to tell you. Now, I know you heard the story of Suge basically saying and alluding to the fact that it was Reggie Wright Jr. who had something to do with Tupac Shakur, him and his ex-wife Sharitha, right? Now, if that was the case, why would Reggie Wright Jr. be in charge and running Death Row Records from prison? Suge put him in charge to be the front man when everything was going down at Death Row Records. Since 1996, Suge has been locked up basically since Pac was dead. He went basically straight to jail and was in court fighting everything else. So immediately, court cases, he couldn't really be on the streets. But that didn't stop his power on the streets at that time and getting things he wanted done. And, you know, in the course of all those actions, nothing was taken up against Reggie Wright Jr. Now, Reggie ran things until Suge came home. Reggie was still with Suge when Suge came home. I, from what I told you, that I know from my recollection, they describe Reggie as a person who basically was a fan. of everybody. He was basically a kiss ass. He wanted to befriend Tupac, Snoop, everybody. He did not come in to try to screw everybody over. He wanted to show them he was down more than anything in the world. So he wanted to act like he was Suge, like a boss or somebody, so he could get the respect from the people that work there. Now, because he didn't get that respect, other people were oftenly clashing with Reggie. Some people respect him, but Tupac was not one of them. Tupac did not trust him. He didn't like the assertiveness of Reggie, allegedly trying to fight to be his friend. And down the stretch, it led to a lot of decisions that were made where Tupac didn't want Reggie to do the things that Reggie was doing. He didn't want Reggie around when he was talking. Pac would literally shut up, they said, and watch Reggie and give him a look until Reggie left the area. So he got the message, like, just leave, Reggie. The problems with Reggie Wright, when did he become a staple? I don't remember Reggie Wright or name ever being mentioned until after Hit 'Em Up came out. And they had to get more security and get more guys. Now, when they were on, he needed his security detail. That was Reggie's job to make sure how many people he had working for his company that wasn't even licensed. From what I heard, it wasn't a licensed company. No one was licensed to get paid from them. So how they were paid is beyond me, but that's not my concern. There's an alleged incident where Tupac had went out somewhere and they didn't have proper security. Tupac had one guy with him, and that was it. And it was basically the Outlaws. And they had a problem at the House of Blues. And Suge was livid. And he tore Reggie a new one, allegedly, and said, "Don't ever play with my artists. Because something happened to my artists. It's going to happen to you too, Reggie. Now, you don't play games with my artists. There's people out here right now in the streets." So they were aware of threats. Don't get it twisted. They were aware of threats. But these were small threats that nobody would dare go to the extreme with a death row artist. There have been a lot of fires that were put out, that was stomped out, in other words. But a lot of people wanted to physically try Tupac. Um, the incident in the store, and the security guard really didn't do his job. So it became a lot of incidents that were happening that they needed more security, because if they traveled the rest of the world, the Hit 'Em Up song was like an invitation for people to come and do what they had to do. Um, he got mad. Pac is explosive. Allegedly, he got really mad at Reggie Wright because Reggie Wright wasn't doing what he needed to do. In other words, so he wanted to complain to Suge about Reggie, and Suge said he got it. It's all right. We got this, and blah blah blah. Now, what Reggie allegedly did to Tupac to get him pissed off, Reggie would have to tell you. But Pac was livid. He was livid at Reggie Wright and didn't want Reggie Wright around him. That's how bad it got. So what Tupac allegedly did was fire Reggie. When he fired the security company, he had sent the fax in to make sure he was firing him and wanted to hire Frank Alexander himself. So by hiring Frank Alexander and making Frank his main security guard at all times, and said, I know you supposedly work for them, but I want you working with me so that you will listen to me, not Suge, not anybody else. I want to hire you. So therefore, I'm okay with paying you. You're going to work for me. So I got you. Frank, he wanted to be his personal bodyguard. And then Frank was the only one Pac trusted. Frank was like considered a friend. Now, if you're bodyguarding someone, is it cool to be their friend? I say it's cool to, be assertive, but they need to know you there to protect their life, not try to be their best friend. And it looked to me as Frank was really, now I won't say he wasn't there to protect Pac, but it was like he was crooning, like crooning up to be his friend. Reggie was very livid at Tupac and did some childish things. From what I heard, that he took a security detail off of Tupac and just said, you know what, I'm not gonna have security on him. I'm fired. So, and then Suge had to tell him, don't play with my artists. You don't do anything unless you talk to me. And I never gave that order. So you gonna keep security on him until I tell you not to keep security on him or anything. You gonna keep security on all my artists. Snoop had one security guard on him. But when Snoop went with the rest of like Death Row Records, he had full security. But they were there really to protect Pac. Pac and Suge. The New York security force, well, Pac didn't really trust Reggie when he went to New York. That's why Fatal had to bring all them dudes from Jersey. That was Pac security. Pac made sure I wasn't just going to New York City without having some real backup. So he had down there half of Jersey come down there and walking with him and rep with him. They were ready for everything to jump off. They didn't care if it was at the award show or anything. If it was gonna jump off, they was gonna be ready. So they had a legal security team that basically was Suge's request on who go, what don't go. Everything else, that's for everybody else to find out. I don't understand what the situation is with with Reggie Wright. Like, I don't know what the incident was that made Pac really blow up. All I remember was told to me that Reggie was one of those kiss ups to Pac, and Pac didn't trust Reggie Wright, didn't want him around, but he liked Frank Alexander, and Reggie was allegedly jealous of that. The Soul Train Music Awards, Reggie brags to Pac, like, man, that's why I had my thing. I was gonna shoot one of them junior mafias, and Pac looked at him like, yeah, whatever. Like he really was not really feeling Frank. I mean, not Frank, but Reggie Wright Jr. I look at Reggie Wright Jr. as a dirty police officer. And when someone's a dirty, I think his father's dirty. I think both of them are dirty cops, and we covered up a lot of evidence in their time. This is my personal belief that both of them were doing things to protect street people and letting other victims get violated. They stole money. I believe they did it all. And it's evident, right? So Reggie's claim is that, because he stopped being a cop to work for Death Row Records and be a security, this is, all the stuff he did that would be in the gray area happened only when he was at Death Row Records and not when he was a cop. So technically, he wasn't a dirty cop. I beg to differ. This is a man who became a police officer because his father was a police officer, and this dude couldn't get a job nowhere in the world that would pay him what he needed to pay to take care of his family. So he couldn't make it on his own in the world. So his daddy got him a job being a cop, just like him. That's the only reason he was on the force. Yeah, and he was like Doofy from Scary Movie. From what I heard. Again, no one respected him. So when guys who were official security, guys who did the street things from MOB Piru, started coming home from jail, and Suge was giving them jobs as security and giving them legal, actual paying jobs. Once he gave them legal paying jobs and put them on and put them where he wanted them to be, a lot of things broke down and started breaking out. They saw Reggie Wright, a guy who they knew was a police officer, working for the company. And they was like, nah, he from the hood. He from the hood. They was like, should be, nah, man, he good. He with us. He with us. He work with us. They don't trust the police. So they never liked Reggie. Even though he was from the block, they didn't like him. He was from around the way. They didn't trust Reggie Wright Jr. And they was like, man, why do we need him around? I don't trust him. And it's a lot of them didn't trust him. They didn't like Reggie Wright Jr. Now, a lot of people didn't like Reggie because once, Suge put him in charge, he had to run things. He had to be the one to be the bearer of bad news. He had to be the one that says, hey, there's no studio time. He can't do this. He can't do that. And a lot of people alluded to the fact that he tried to be Suge Knight. Like if he actually had a meeting and actually said, if you hear it from me, it came from Suge. So if you ain't listening to me, that means you ain't listening to Suge. So you can go down there and visit Suge if you want. And he gonna say, why you wasting his time? If Reggie told you to do it, then do it. Because it come from me. So a lot of people was very uncomfortable with his position on the death row staff. So Ms. Chalet ended up coming in running the company. Should basically switched it to having Ms. Chalet run things. This power struggle with Reggie um, allegedly didn't sit well. Reggie was to handle the dark side of things that Ms. Chalet couldn't know about. While Ms. Chalet ran some of the mundane tasks. She was there for a reason. Now, that's basically all I know about the situation. As I told you, different people have told me about Reggie Wright Jr. And that's what I get. So people would be like, man, why you don't deal with Bomb? I got nothing bad to say about that Bomb First website, John and all those guys who run it over there. Nothing to say negative against them whatsoever. I just don't. If Tupac didn't mess with me, I'm not going to have the Tupac website. I understand that's a money grab for them, but Reggie knows or not know if Tupac dealt with him in any type of way as far as being friends. I heard someone said he alluded to Afeni being doing business with them. They had to do business with them to get the rights to Tupac music before they were awarded. The state was awarded the rights to the music from Death Row Records. But when Amaru Records came out and they had the previous released Tupac materials, they were still fighting to get the rights to his material so they could put out records. So when they did the deal with Death Row Records, Reggie keeps saying he did the deal and all this stuff. And why would Afeni do a deal with me? And they had no choice but to deal with Death Row Records to do this deal to get the music to come out. So it was a business move until they didn't have to do it anymore. So it wasn't like they were the best of friends and Afeni loved Reggie Wright Jr. and all this. So I don't know what he told you about that, but as for business purposes, there was no way they could get the records without going through Death Row Records. So, I mean, that's all I know. So don't forget to hit the like button. My Cash App is Carceno, Karceno, with the dollar sign in front, of course. Then you'll see Carceno for Life pop up. You'll see my picture, me wearing a green shirt that seemed to be cut off, but that was my green Boston Kyrie shirt. So, other than that, thank you. The Patreon is going to be very interesting as we will talk about the Queen over there. As people are wondering why I haven't said anything about the Queen, we'll talk about the Queen over there on the Patreon. So, oh yeah, it'll be very interesting. I'm out.